The Power Pause is a short, practical book by John Harricharan that teaches a deceptively simple idea. When life feels chaotic or overwhelming, the most effective thing you can do is stop, breathe, and pause. Beneath that simplicity lies a deeper philosophy of transformation. Harricharan weaves personal anecdotes, parables, and gentle guidance into a system that invites readers to reclaim control of their lives through the practice of intentional pausing. Rather than rushing forward, reacting to every problem, or drowning in stress, the pause becomes a tool to reset energy, restore perspective, and align with a more powerful flow of life. The book begins with Harricharan's own stories of struggle, financial difficulties, health scares, and emotional setbacks. Instead of painting himself as a guru who has always had the answers, he shares how he learned to pause in the middle of crises. In these moments, pausing was not about escaping responsibility but about regaining clarity before taking the next step. This honesty sets the tone of the book. Readers can see themselves in his difficulties and are more willing to believe in the possibility of change through something so small yet profound. Harricharan describes the pause as an act of conscious interruption. Life tends to sweep us into a current of worry, plans, and reactions. When you take a pause, even for a few minutes, you stop feeding the chaos. It is like taking your hand off a spinning wheel, the momentum slows, and you suddenly see patterns you couldn't notice before. That pause becomes a space where solutions, inspiration, or simply relief can enter. He suggests that without these moments, people act from fear or confusion, which only compounds their struggles. The power of the pause also lies in its timing. Harricharan stresses that you don't wait for everything to collapse before pausing. You can build the habit into everyday life, a moment before a difficult conversation, a breath before sending an email, a quiet pause before making a major decision. The practice is portable, you don't need special equipment, money, or hours of meditation. The simplicity of it means no one is excluded, and everyone can begin immediately. The storytelling often draws from nature to illustrate the point. He compares the pause to seasons of rest, like winter, where the ground appears barren but is preparing for new growth. He shows how even in music, pauses are what make the melody meaningful. Without space, sound is noise. Without pauses, life becomes a blur of tasks and tension. These metaphors elevate the pause from a technique into a universal principle woven into the very structure of existence. Harricharan's tone is never forceful. Instead, he encourages experimentation. Try pausing, he suggests, and see how the world shifts in small but noticeable ways. He shares examples of businesspeople who found solutions after stepping away for a few minutes, or families who resolved conflicts when someone decided to breathe before lashing out. These stories are designed not only to inspire but also to prove that the method works across contexts. As the book deepens, Harricharan connects pausing to energy. He argues that people are not just physical beings but also energetic ones. When you pause, you stop leaking energy through worry, fear, or resistance. In that stillness, your energy rebalances. He likens it to tuning an instrument. Even a small adjustment in the strings creates harmony in the whole piece. This idea gives the pause a spiritual dimension without anchoring it to any single religion. The pause is also framed as an act of self-kindness. So often, people berate themselves for mistakes or pressure themselves with impossible standards. Harricharan shows that pausing is a way of saying, I deserve a moment of grace. This shift in mindset is powerful because it interrupts cycles of self-criticism and allows compassion to emerge. From that compassionate state, better choices follow naturally. In one of the most memorable stories, Harricharan recounts facing a financial disaster that seemed unsolvable. Instead of frantically calling banks or stressing over spreadsheets, he forced himself to take a pause. In that quiet space, an idea came to him, one that eventually resolved the crisis. The lesson is not that problems vanish but that solutions often appear when we stop chasing them in panic. By slowing down, we allow insight to catch up with us. Throughout the book, Harricharan also highlights how society conditions people to avoid pausing. We are taught to do, to measure worth by constant activity. The pause seems unproductive, even lazy, in such a culture. But he reframes it as the most productive choice you can make because it resets the mind and body for more effective action. Productivity, he argues, is not about non-stop motion but about aligned, meaningful effort that arises after stillness. There's also a practical side to his storytelling. Harricharan doesn't simply preach, he models how to use the pause in ordinary life. For instance, he describes pausing while stuck in traffic rather than stewing in frustration. In that moment, he shifts his attention to gratitude for having a car, a job to go to, and the beauty of the sky. Such shifts transform negative experiences into opportunities for peace. The takeaway is clear: pausing changes the quality of life even in mundane moments. The narrative arc of the book moves from individual practice to broader impact. Harricharan argues that when enough people cultivate pauses, the ripple effects extend into families, workplaces, and even societies. A single person choosing peace instead of anger can shift the emotional tone of a room. He dreams of a world where the power pause becomes a cultural norm, where communities are built on reflection rather than reactivity. Harricharan also acknowledges resistance. Some readers might think a pause is too simple to matter or that their problems are too urgent for such a technique. He gently counters by saying that urgency is the very reason to pause. The more critical the situation, the more important it is to stop and collect yourself. He reminds readers that every great leader, artist, or thinker has used pauses, whether consciously or unconsciously, to access their best selves. In the closing chapters, Harricharan blends encouragement with urgency. Life will always bring challenges, health issues, financial troubles, relationship conflicts. The pause is not a cure-all, but it is a universal key that can open the door to better handling any circumstance. He insists that readers try it not someday but today, even if only for a minute. Small pauses practiced consistently accumulate into a life lived with greater wisdom and calm. The power pause ends as it began, with storytelling that grounds lofty ideas in simple human experiences. Harricharan's voice remains warm, conversational, and personal, as though he is speaking directly to the reader. By the last page, the pause is no longer just a tool but a way of living. It becomes a quiet revolution, choosing stillness in a world addicted to motion, choosing clarity over chaos, and choosing presence over distraction. The gift of the book is not merely the concept but the way Harricharan makes it feel both attainable and urgent.